It's the race for the White House in what is being billed as the closest election in an entire generation. History could be made on Tuesday night if Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party, the incumbent vice president, goes on to defeat Donald Trump of the Republican Party, the former president. She will, if she does that, become the first ever woman president of the United States, something that has never happened in the close to 250-year history of the United States of America. While history is there on the one side, on the other side, there is momentum. Donald Trump seems to be the candidate who has momentum behind him. He has tailwind behind him. He has narrowed the gap, both in the popular vote as well as in the battleground states, to less than 1%. A month and a half ago, Kamala Harris had a 2-point, maybe even a 2.5-point lead. But that has been narrowed, particularly just in the last month of October, leading up to, of course, November 5th, which is election day. That is the position that any candidate would want to be in. And Donald Trump seems to be in a fine position to once again win the White House. He and his supporters, the Make America Great Again crowd, believe that the 2020 election was stolen away from Donald Trump because of malpractices. But be that as it may, whatever they believe, the fact is that Donald Trump has run a campaign which has run the Democrat establishment so close. In fact, he forced the change of the incumbent President Joe Biden when it was actively clear to everybody in America that Joe Biden was not in a fit state for the toughest job in the world. He was actively in a position of mental decline, and that he needed to make way for a younger candidate. And therefore, on the 21st of July, Joe Biden withdrew his candidacy, his candidature for the Democratic Party's ticket, and then his deputy, the Vice President Kamala Harris, became the Democratic Party's official nominee. Now, what's at stake here for America is the very future direction of this country. Is this country going to be more inclusive, more representative, more respectful of freedoms of all individuals, no matter what color they are, no matter what gender they are? One of the top issues that the Democrats believe is on the ticket this election is about women and women's bodies and their right to reproductive freedom. This on the back of the cancellation or the overthrow of the famous Roe versus Wade verdict by the Supreme Court, a court which the Democrats claim has been highly influenced by Donald Trump. It was his appointees who overthrew that verdict. And now, as a consequence of that, in many states across the United States, you're looking at a possible statewide abortion ban. This, the Democrats say, is the number one issue. On the other hand, the Republicans say this is not so much the biggest issue. And in any case, Trump has said he will not put in place a federal abortion ban. According to the Republicans, the two biggest issues are, number one, the economy. Ordinary Americans are not feeling good. They're not feeling like the economy is working for them, that the last 4 years have made their economic condition, their economic status better than it was 4 years ago. People remember the checks that Trump gave away during the COVID pandemic, and they believe that as a businessman, he might be in a better position to fix the economic troubles at home. The other big concern for most ordinary Americans is the issue of immigration. And Trump and the Republicans have seized on this, made this, talked this issue up in such a huge way that they believe that this might be the vote-determining issue. They say that the southern border is completely messed up. There are tens of millions of illegal immigrants coming into the United States, and they have painted this issue in a way that it resonates with ordinary Americans, saying that it's because of the illegal immigrants that crime is going up in inner cities. It's because of the illegal immigrants that jobs are hard to come by, and so on. This, of course, is having resonance with a section of the Republican audience, the Republican voter base. But if you were to look at early voting trends, and here's where it gets interesting, because ultimately, remember, whoever wins the White House has to win the battleground states. There are about half a dozen of them. There are the so-called blue wall states, which are Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Between them, about 40-odd electoral college votes. And then there is the Sun Belt states, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and North Carolina. Again, between them, about 40-odd electoral college votes. For Kamala Harris to win, she has to win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. These were three states that Joe Biden carried 4 years ago, but Hillary Clinton failed to carry 8 years ago. And that's why she lost the presidency to Donald Trump. For Kamala Harris to win the presidency, she has to win Wisconsin, she has to win Michigan, and she has to win Pennsylvania, which is the biggest of all the battleground states with 19 electoral college votes. If she loses Pennsylvania, then she has to win all the other 6 battleground states, something that looks highly unlikely given where the polls have put her. In almost all of the Sun Belt states, from Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, she seems to be trailing Trump anywhere between less than a point to more than 2 points. So her best chance is to win the blue wall states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and thereby get to 270. For Donald Trump, he seems to be on a better path to 270 because of the slight inherent advantage in the electoral college system for a Republican candidate. Donald Trump is currently leading in Arizona. He's currently leading in North Carolina, leading by a margin, in a very thin margin, in fact, in Georgia. And of course, in early vote, the indications are the Republicans are leading in Nevada as well, which traditionally has been a state that the Democrats could have banked on. So he seems to be sitting pretty on the so-called Sun Belt states. All that Donald Trump needs to go past that magic figure of 270 is one of the 3 blue wall states, either one of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. He doesn't even have to win the biggest one, which is Pennsylvania. If he wins Wisconsin, which is the smallest, with just 10 electoral college votes, then Trump will go on to become the 47th president of the United States. So the critical question is, as the Democrats say, it's reproductive freedoms, it is women's rights that's on the front page, on top of the ticket, and of course the Republicans are saying immigration and economy are on top of the ticket. But if you were to look at the early voting trends, and here's where it gets a bit interesting, because the number of women to men has widened, at least in the early voting. More than 50 million Americans have already cast an early vote, either through mail-in or early in-person voting. And there, the skew seems to be 55-56% women and about 45-46% men. So there's almost an 8 to 9 percentage difference between the men and women ratio. Democrats are saying this is primarily because women are coming out in larger numbers. For women, the number one most resonant issue is abortion, and therefore they are coming out in larger numbers to back Kamala Harris. The Republicans say that is not quite the case. Women are also upset about this entire woke virus, as the Republicans call it, this woke business which seems to have taken over the Democratic Party, about having trans women compete in women's sports, etc. This, the Republicans feel, is really taking the woke agenda way too far, and many people are repulsed by it, and therefore women are equally incensed about this issue, and that's why they believe women are coming out in larger numbers. Also, when it comes to the racial differential, if you will, remember the Democratic Party is heavily reliant on the minorities, whether it is African Americans or Hispanics or any other immigrant community, to back them. But in these polls, what we're seeing is again a very unique trend. African American men and Hispanic men, at least in some measure, not as much as the Republicans would hope, and certainly not as much as what the Democrats would concede, but in some measure, 60-40 maybe, some of them seem to be backing Donald Trump. And this is a problem for Kamala Harris in her campaign. You saw that a few weeks ago when Barack Obama, the first African-American president of the U.S., was campaigning to a bunch of black men. He referred to them as brothers, and he said that there is a particular problem amongst the brothers not wanting to support Kamala Harris. So whether that message resonated with the African-American men, that constituency, will have to wait and see on the 5th of November. Some Hispanic men as well have been openly supportive of Donald Trump. But how may all of that change in what we've seen just in the last week or so? The comments about Puerto Rico being an island of garbage, the backlash that the Trump campaign got as a result of that, and then Joe Biden's comments just in the fag end of this campaign where he referred to Trump supporters as garbage, the Trump campaign seizing on that opportunity, Trump coming up in a garbage truck and dedicating that to his supporters. He compared it to the 2016 comment that Hillary Clinton made when she was running for the office, when she said that Trump supporters are a basket of deplorables. Whether or not all of this last minute, comments and counter comments, whether or not it really moves the needle in terms of bringing out the vote, in terms of motivating the base, that is something that we will know only on the 5th of November. But clearly, it is a supercharged election, no doubt about it. Both sides are throwing the kitchen sink at it. Both sides desperately want to win this presidential election. The Democrats feel There's no point going backwards. There's no point going back to the 4 years of 2016 and 2020. The Republicans say all the problems of the last 4 years are because of Biden and Harris, and therefore if the country needs to move forward, it needs someone who has the ability to fix the country's problems, and that they believe, the Republicans, is only Donald Trump. So it's going to be a high-wire election. It is going to go right down to the finish line. Like I said, it could go on to not just election night. I don't expect that we will get a clear winner on fifth night. Perhaps we might have to wait till the 6th or the 7th, or maybe even days before we get the certified result of who actually won the 2024 US presidential election. It's a riveting contest, and we'll have it covered here on CNN News 18 all through this week. My video journalist Chintan Puri and me will be here in Washington, D.C., America's capital, getting you a ringside view of which way America decides 2024.